Toni.com every week, 104.5 and 106.1 Tuesdays from 12 to 1 p.m. And we are talking about legal issues. If you have questions, reach out to us at questions@legalconnectionshow.com. Today, Toni and I are going to be talking about homeowners associations. Right, Toni?
Yes, we are. And there is, it seems so dry. And, you don't want to, there wouldn't be much to really listen to or talk about. Oh my gosh, if you own a home, it's more than likely you are in a homeowners association.
Right.
And
It's a
I'm
big
sure
deal.
lots of people have crazy stories about them. But the more I looked into it, and I've never had any problems with any of my homeowner associations at all. So I don't really have a dog in that fight. But I'll tell you this, my husband actually moved originally before I met him from the house that he owned in, was it Grand Lakes? That Sugarland community that's really big.
Right.
Grand, whatever it is.
Right.
But anyway, he moved out there. He was all excited about it. They got the big red brick house, 2-story right by the lake, the whole bit.
Right.
And the homeowners gave him a bad time. And they wouldn't let him keep his garage door open on Saturdays while he was working on projects. It was insane. And he literally was like, you know what? I don't care how much money I put into this house. I'm out of here.
Wow.
So he moved up here to Conroe to get away from the homeowner Gestapos because you couldn't, because it was that strict. And so I think the bottom line is what we're talking about today is if you buy a home, you better understand the rules and regulations and the restrictions in your homeowners, with the homeowner association, what they've established, because it could really affect your life a great deal in the things that they will control and govern what you can do with your own property.
Okay. Well, absolutely. So let's talk about what a homeowners association is.
Okay.
I mean, if you own a home and you've had run-ins with them, then you know what they are. Some of our listeners may not know what they are. So they're called HOAs, right?
Yes.
They're organizations.
And some other POAs, property owners associations.
And as I was looking for this, I saw COAs too.
Oh, condominium association.
Condominium.
Yes.
Okay. So they deal with the upkeep of the common areas. Sometimes homeowners associations actually own the common areas. Like we're talking about common areas like
that
streets.
The streets too, really. Huh.
Can be some of the streets, the pools, clubhouses.
That's I forgot all about that. I guess they would do that. I was thinking
lakes.
Condominium, because I have a townhouse. In our townhouse, the common areas are owned by everybody. They're not owned by the association. They're only governed by the association. But I suppose the homeowner association could own it. And I do know that in our subdivision, when the developer put it together for the first 10 years, the developer because the developer owns everything. And then they subdivide it and they get the restrictions put in. And then the homeowners association is established, and there's different rules on how they do that, what have you. But generally, the developer has their own persons, workers, associates. They're put into the positions of the officers in the association. And after a 10-year period, there was something called the transfer control date. And the developer would transfer ownership after he sold all the lots or all the ones he wanted to sell. He'd transfer ownership of all of the remaining entities, like for an example, in our homeowner association, we have horse ranches, where little, I don't use them, so I should know, although our homeowner association owns them. They're corrals where you can, people that ride horses are going to know what these
work
things are
out
called.
your horses.
But the pools and that kind of thing would also be something that would be considered as a part of the homeowners association.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the 10-year mark, that was called the controlled transfer date, and all of the areas that weren't restricted and the open areas that weren't just easements got transferred over to the ownership of the association, or at least the governance of the association, and all the rights of the association got transferred over. So if there was an easement that remained open, and let's say that it terminated or there was some issue with it, then the association is now in the position to be able to fight or control or, make rules upon, those things. So I was kind of long-winded about that without having any legal background on it. But the bottom line is it's all it's all controlled and governed by those covenants and restrictions that are now a part of the land because they were created and made a part of it by the developer when it was put together.
At the very beginning, and then
Yes.
it's transferred over to the homeowners
Mm-hmm.
association. And so they govern the common areas and common facilities,
Right. And what we'll get into, I guess, do you want to give some definitions or, just kind of get
Yeah,
us
sure.
going on
To
it?
get it started. Definitions like on what?
Well, actually, I kind of had a bunch of little question and answer things, but I had picked up this article. There's just so much about homeowners associations, how they're governed.
Right.
One of the big things, because I had a case on this about 5 years ago, is homeowners association dues. And if you don't pay them, because that's usually not one of your high priorities in your bill, when you're paying your bills is, just the homeowners association. They don't even do anything for me. They're not going to cut my electricity off or whatever. No, you don't pay your homeowners association dues. And a lot of this happens so much. It's incredible. I get calls about this all the time. If you don't pay them, they can foreclose on your house.
I know.
This is not like those 3 things that you learn in law school where there's only 3 ways they can foreclose on your homestead.
Right.
And that's going to be the mortgage, if you got a home improvement loan, or taxes. No. Homeowners associations can also foreclose if you don't pay them. But there's a lot of restrictions on that. For an example, did you know that, or I'll ask you this instead. If homeowners, at what point can a homeowners association in Texas by statute be able to foreclose on your house? How far behind do you have to be? And it's statutory. So I think they can change it within the rules. In fact, they can.
I would say 3 months. If it's statutory.
No, it's an amount. It's weird. $1,800.
Oh gosh, that's nothing.
Yeah, if you're that is nothing. It depends because sometimes some homeowners associations have really low dues, and so particularly ones like in another property I own, they grandfathered in that with the amount that they had when they bought the property.
Oh wow!
Oh my gosh! And
$200
after 30 years, everybody else is coming in buying the property, and it's like $400 a month or whatever it may be. I don't think. Well, I guess it could be something that high. But theirs is only $25 a year. I mean, there's
that's
like
not bad.
Nothing.
No.
But the new owners have $400 a year,
right?
Because they didn't grandfather in.
Oh.
And then this particular association was really kind to people that had disabilities, or they had something. There was something handicapped veterans. They got different. This is strange, but they got different amounts that were due because of that, either their own handicap or because of their service to the
military,
the military or to the United States.
Really?
So I wanted to read this one little article, and it's about the Palmers, and it's sort of like flip flop. You know how when they buy houses, and you're thinking, I'm going to be a real estate mogul. I'm going to go in. I'm going to buy this little house. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be Joanna Gaines and Chip and Joanna. I got to give them some credit. I've got to go in there and I'm going to make a mint flipping house as well. What they don't tell you, or they may not watch that show enough, is that if you don't really look closely at those homeowners associations restrictions, you may not be able to do a flip flop because there's so much control over what you can do, even to the outside of the property with this. So I think they're maybe in Waco, maybe they don't have as many, issues with the restrictions, or maybe they're buying the homes that don't. But that's a big, big deal. There is so many things that you cannot do, particularly to the front area of your house, which
in some communities, like the common interest communities, the houses have to look pretty much uniform. Is that what you're talking about?
The color of the paint even has to be approved.
Yeah.
The shade of gray has to be approved. And that can get expensive because with each approval, you may have to pay a fee. You have to submit it to your homeowner association. And this is just a group of people after either they're voted in, and there's a whole procedure under the Texas Property Code.
By the community, right?
Texas Property Code 202 versus 209 governs all this if you ever have to look for what your rights are outside of your homeowner association. But those particular, your homeowners association officers get together as a board, and there's certain rules and regulations that they have to follow before they can enact a provision or they can change a provision. But once they're there, it's tough. And so I never attended any of my homeowners association meetings, which is really bad over, so many years. But I'm doing it now just to kind of be informed, or at least to read the newsletter. You need to be apprised of what's going on because you don't know what's being voted in and out. And I will give another example. In another one of the properties we own, it's on a commercial. We have a commercial and commercial as well as residential property. So we're a commercial. We can live in it, but we can also have a business on it.
Really?
Yes, and that's different from the other restrictions on the interior because we're on a main thoroughfare. And the homeowners now, the homeowners association wants to raise the homeowner association fees for the commercial entities, but not for the residential, which is unfair to the commercial located properties. Because what if you're only using it for residential? You're in a subdivision it's not fully developed yet, let's say. So that would be an unconstitutional, I guess there would be a constitutional due process taking if you were required, and it's not equitable for the commercial owners to pay more than the residential restricted owners when they're not getting any more benefit from the dues. It's just that they may make more money because they've got a commercially restricted lot.
Yeah.
And so that's being fought right now, but that has to do with the homeowners association, the actual restrictions and the deed restrictions. And I can tell you the truth, I don't think anything's happened with it yet, but if enough owners vote and they follow the rules, it can be changed to the detriment of the commercial owners who only make up about 5% of the whole number of lots that own as the group. So that's kind of something that's pouring out right now that I'm not really, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'll keep everybody apprised. So do we have to take a break?
Yeah, we're going to go to break. You can send us your questions at legalconnectionshow.com, and you can check us out on the web at legalconnectionshow.com. We'll be right back after the break.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? The Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your question. Get seen on TV or YouTube and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Sponsor your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
Hey guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question, comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station on irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Toni and Cheryl. Toni and I are here today talking about homeowners associations. And we were just talking about the difference between commercial and residential. And I didn't realize that they pay different dues.
Well, they don't. Not in general. It depends on what the deed restrictions say.
Right.
Because in many subdivisions, they border a main thoroughfare. And if they border a main thoroughfare, you don't want to be restricted to only residential because you want to have a commercial property, a business. You want to run a business where you've got the most traffic. And typically, people don't buy a home on like a, I-45.
Or 1488 or something right there, right.
So they're going to zone it so it's mixed, particularly in the beginning, because if you're in a rural area, there's not going to be, you probably want to live there. and which is what's going on over on our other property. We've got it's set up so it could be a house. It's got a bathroom. It's got areas that can be built out to be bedrooms, and you can do both. And in fact, many of the business owners do actually live in their property.
Right.
And they're sort of up in arms because why should they have to pay a higher fee when they don't even use the facilities? They're not getting any more benefit. Why should their fees be higher just because they're determined to be maybe to make more money? That would be now they're looking at the character of the person living there and not what benefit they're getting from the homeowners association dues. So they're kind of fighting that. But if the residential property owners, which are a majority of the owners, I think there's like 400 lots in there, out of like a total of 500, then they could, as a majority, they could go in and vote, and they could be voted that they would have higher dues. That would be an amendment to the deed restrictions. That's governed by the Texas Property Code, Chapter 209, and those officers have to follow certain rules to make the deed restrictions, to allow the deed restrictions to be changed, or that not that the restrictions actually changed, but that the amount can be changed because that's covered by the restrictions, the way to modify an amount due. Because everybody knows that, back in 1960, there was a cost of living change, back 50 years later, 70, whatever it's going to be. These just like in River Oaks, these subdivisions will go on forever. I mean, River Oaks was established, I believe, back in, I want to say, that's just a long time since I've looked at the history of River Oaks, but I was so interested in it at the time. I want to say it was in the early 1900s that River Oaks was a way out subdivision from downtown, and it was established. But I could be wrong. It could have been in the late 1800s. But it's still in place.
Oh, yeah.
And the difference between the way River Oaks looks and the way Westview looks and the way Montrose looks all had to do with deed restrictions, because Houston doesn't have zoning, which is another thing that modifies and governs what you can do with your property. But Montrose was sort of the dumpy area on the other side of the railroad tracks. And then Westview was the elite, and the subdivisions were established at the exact same time. The deed restrictions made Westview an elite area because they had nice homes. People knew when they bought into it how beautiful they were going to be and that they could only do certain things. And the Montrose turned into kind of a hippie Upper Westheimer flip-flop of stuff. But of course, now it's I want to say, what's the term look like? When you have, when things are completely different, what is the term I'm looking for?
Transformation?
No.
When things are completely different.
Eclectic.
Yes.
When you've got like this quaint little house right next to a little, a trailer home.
Yes.
But that's what deed restrictions do. They don't allow you to put trailer homes next to mansions.
Right.
Or a gas station. There's lots of things going on with that. Now, the way it works is in fact, this article from A&M was just amazing.
Hear. What is that?
And then I'm going to get into 9 things you want to do before you buy property in order that you can you'll be comfortable and
deal with
feel
your HOA.
secure about your HOAs, right? Okay, so this was an article, and it was a real live case, and it was the Palmers. The Palmers purchased a home in an established neighborhood. The home was located in one of the oldest subdivisions in the city.
And this is Houston?
This is, it's not in Houston, but we can pretend like it's in River Oaks.
Okay.
The Palmers contemplated making major structural changes to refurbish the old residence. So I can only imagine that they wouldn't want to do that in River Oaks, but maybe they've got a little shack out there or something in these converted areas, which is another thing. My sister bought a house back in 1984 in Oakwood Forest for $40,000. And then that turned into a teardown area, and they didn't do anything to their house. And now today, as we speak, and it's it's not one of these cute little quaint cottages. It's the other, and it's now worth the property is worth between $350,000 and $500,000.
Wow!
And this is just right outside the loop, and they still live there. So when we're talking about refurbishing old houses, a lot of times they're tear downs. So sometimes you want to buy it to wait for them to improve in value. Like I don't want to say like Chip and Joanna, they do it pretty quick. They do those flips. Oh, I wish I had that talent. Anyway, the contractor, however, thought that the proposed modifications would violate deed restrictions requiring 51% of the house's exterior to be either brick or stone. So that paper wasn't they had in mind. The restriction was placed on the subdivision by the original developer. This was the Palmers' first exposure to deed restrictions. The Palmers wondered if the deed restrictions were still enforceable, and if so, who had the power to enforce them. The Palmers wondered about having the deed restrictions removed. And here's what they found out. Deed restrictions are an established means of regulating land use. Properly implemented deed restrictions govern such things as property use and the kind, character, and location of the buildings or other structures.
Mhm.
The party imposing the restrictions must first own the land. The restrictions may be placed in subsequent deeds or recorded with the subdivision plat. Recording gives constructive notice to all purchasers. So you know when you buy it what you're getting into.
Right.
And the developer knows when they buy it what they're getting into, because
Right.
it's not just free land when the developer bought it. I was reading some cases where a developer bought a large chunk of property within an area that had deed restrictions. And then the old owner said, the old farmer Joe said, nope, you can't do that. And they went to court. The old farmer Joe won a ton of attorney's fees,
Wow.
and the developer could not do what they wanted to do. And they were putting in like 50 houses. So
really?
yeah, the old farmer Joe knew. And the developer was like, oh, no problem. I got this. It's old. It's already passed. The statute of limitations passed, and because it's been waived. Nope. Those deed restrictions, it's not that easy. You better be really careful when you're buying some open land, that you've really looked carefully at what's in that title, because your land may be subject to that.
Wow, that's interesting.
yes.
I did not realize that it applied to developers as well.
Yeah.
I thought developers established.
Well, no, you go back to, just like on one of our other shows, you go back to 1836 when we became, we became our own state, when we won our independence from Mexico. And then later, when it was sort of like Texas also had deed restrictions when we became a part of the United States, because now we had to comply with their rules. But if you should really go back as far as you could go, because you don't know what deed restrictions are going to be in place. Now, deed restrictions probably did not apply back in, the 1880s, because people weren't thinking they were going to, someone was going to put a house or a trailer. Trailers didn't exist. I mean, cars didn't even come about until the 1903. But deed restrictions became prevalent during periods of like Pottersville, particularly after World War II, when people were coming back from the war, and then everybody needed houses, and then and everybody knows if you've watched It's a Wonderful Life, how it just kind of took off from there. But so you probably wouldn't have to go back to 1836, but at least back to like my sister's 1940.
Yeah.
Her house was a 1940s house. Okay, so potential purchasers can determine whether property is subject to deed restrictions by researching the chain of title to the property and by examining the subdivision plat. A title policy of purchase also reveals their presence. Deed restrictions can be confused with conditional fees and determinable fee estates. A little bit different. You can actually tell that when you look at the title. It's not that hard to go into up here in Montgomery County. You can Google the official property records of Montgomery County, and if you for no fee, and you just sign in as a guest, you don't have to log in or anything. Set up your name and all that stuff. You can actually go into the deed records at your house. Everything is automated now. And look at everything.
Wow.
Deed restrictions, assumed names, who got married. And you can do that also in Harris and other counties. But I really like Montgomery counties because nothing's hidden. There's nothing where you have to go into the site and actually, see it by going, walking in. You can see everything online. As long as you've got like that Adobe or, whatever your computer's updated to actually look at it. Do we have to go on a break? Okay.
No, we're good.
I was watching.
Yeah, we're good.
Well, good. All right. So with each of these, the grantee receives title subject to a condition or limitation. And that's the conditional fees or terminal fees. But those will go away. So deed restrictions are a little bit different. Okay. So when you're reading the title, if you have a question, call an attorney and then they can differentiate for it. Usually if you call one of us or email us for free, we can just say, well, no, that's that's something different. That's a conditional fee, or that's not going to be a restrictive covenant that goes with the land forever. We might be able to answer that for them. If the specific condition or contingency occurs, the grantee loses title to the land. In other words, like with Memorial Park, that was deeded to Houston in 1903 by, I think it was I'm a Hog. Her name was actually I'm a Hog.
I'm a Hog?
Yes. And people might know the history of that. But when she deeded that land, which used to be called Rice Military School, that was the survey name. And that was because during World War I, they did military work right there at Memorial Park. And there's lots of history, if you want to read about it, where that was like a really good, they had blacks and whites working together and all together to help the war effort in World War I. And I think there was some riots out there too, which was really, really bad. And
Why
because there's a
were
lot of
they
racial
rioting?
tensions
Oh,
right out there at Memorial Park. But ultimately, the Memorial Park area, not the memorial subdivisions around Imahog, sold that or gifted that land to the city. But the condition was it could never be used for anything but a park. And when that condition is breached and it's no longer used for a park, they try to put commercial on it or whatever, it would go back to the Imahog estate. So that's why Memorial Park has never been developed. However, the estate has kind of tweaked that throughout the years by putting the tennis court on there, and they put like a golf course on there that you have to pay a fee for. And I think they've got Beck's Prime is a restaurant that's on there because, and fees may have to go like for a charity thing, a certain part to pay toward the Memorial Park Association, whatever. I'm not that well versed in the actual workings of how they got away with that, but that condition makes it so there will never be houses. No one will ever live. I don't even think homeless people can live on Memorial Park, and that's why it's such a beautifully maintained park in the heart of the city.
right.
But that's different from deed restrictions because that wasn't in a deed restriction. That was a part of a covenant when that was a special condition that will never change. In other words, that can't be voted out by a board member on a committee. Title can never be lost by breaching a restricted covenant in deed restrictions, okay, which is different from a determinative fee estate like with Memorial Park. Now, deed restrictions may appear in two forms. One is called a personal covenant. The other is a real covenant. Personal covenants are binding only between the grantor and the grantee. And that is like one I just saw the other day in another title deal I was working on. The grantor specifically said, as long as I live on this property, you agree that, I think that how do they have it worded? It was specifically between the grantor and the grantee.
Right.
And it had to do with having, leaving the trees up as a buffer. And the person had owned two properties apparently. And they said, as long as I live on the property behind this property, this particular property on the other side must maintain 75 feet of trees on the property that's contiguous. In other words, as long as this person lived, they would always have trees behind their house. And when they died,
they could do whatever.
They could do whatever. That's how they were. It was kind of like a life estate. So that would be a personal covenant. A personal covenant has nothing to do with the use and enjoyment of the property. Texas court decided that a covenant whereby the grantor agreed to purchase gasoline only from the grantor was a personal covenant. So that's kind of crazy, but it said that as long as you're using, I guess it must have been a gas station. It says no subsequent owner of the property was bound by that. Only that one person was. Okay. Real covenants, on the other hand, directly affect the use and enjoyment of the property. Those are the important ones. Well, they're important to anybody besides, they're going to be important if you didn't make a deal and you just bought the property in a subdivision. The real covenants are the ones that you need to look at.
Right.
And those are typically the ones that are set up by the developer as we know it, not some old timey thing about Memorial or River Oaks.
Right.
Or, some crazy weird thing like we were talking about. In new subdivisions, the ones that they're developing right now, as you drive down 45 and it says, come see our property. Covenants of this nature are said to run with the land and are touch and concern the property. This means the covenant and the property are inseparable once the covenant is recorded. All subsequent transferees will be subject to the covenant, whether the restrictions are expressly referred to in the conveying instrument or not. Consequently, not only are the original grantor and grantee entitled to the benefits and liable for their obligations, but so are their successors and owners. So the person that you were to sell to, if you had that covenant, if this was recorded, you would also be, that next person would also be subject to them.
Okay, Toni, we're going to take another break, just a short break here, and we'll be back. Check us out at legalconnectionshow.com. Send us your questions at legalconnectionshow.com. We'll be right back after the break.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio. broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julie and Shay here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Toni and Cheryl. Toni and I are here today talking about homeowners associations. And, Toni, we have a question here that says, what kinds of things can homeowners associations regulate? And, the authority that they have, they cover things like maintenance and upkeep standards. Owners are expected to meet as members of the HOA. So, that like I said earlier, the common areas, part of living in the community typically includes agreeing to keep a home, its lawn, and surrounding property in good condition. Mm-hmm. They can get really upset, homeowners associations, if you leave your trash cans out too long or you let your grass get too tall.
Ours actually says when you can bring it out, and I think many of them do. It can't be before
ours
a certain time on the day before. And I guess you would be in breach if you did it before that, but I don't think they really hope that they're not that picky.
No kidding. Me too. Rules can also limit new construction. So residents likely need permission if they want to install a swimming pool or a fence or build an addition to their home. They'll need permission. Standards they can apply to driveways, landscapings, and other aspects of the property.
And they do. It could go so far as to type, and I was reading about another case, the type of fertilizer that you use.
Really?
Yes, because some of them are, if you're like, if you have I guess in this community, it was all nature and you couldn't have pesticides that would hurt the wildlife because it had butterflies and it had horses and stuff. There was a regulation on what you could use to kill your grass because they said it would harm the animals and the wildlife in the area. They can get really, nitpicky.
They sure can. And then also, how do they enforce rules? We've been talking about they've got these rules and they can govern, they can send you letters, they can do whatever. But disciplinary actions by an HOA are typically in the form of fines. You were saying they can foreclose on your house, and they can.
Right.
But typically it's in the form of fines. But in more serious cases, they can actually go as far as a lien on the property.
Well, typically that is going to be because they didn't pay their homeowners association dues. A lien, they can put a lien on your property, and they also have the authority within those deed restrictions, and it'll say it in there that they can come and take out the plant or the tree that you put in the right of way. They will send you letters. They usually have to give you a first, second, and third notice. And whatever those legal fees it costs where they're fighting with you about it, they can usually get those back, and it's all within those covenants within the homeowners association rules. So read those very closely.
Right. For a sufficient offense, they can even foreclose on your home depending on its rules, like you just said.
Judicial or non-judicial, and they have to put those in there too. But if it's a non-judicial, just like in many deeds of trust, they don't have to go through the courts to come to foreclose. They can literally say, look here, we're going to post your house up for foreclosure. The homeowners association, this is insane.
It's crazy.
And then when they do that, they can go a step further and say, and work with your first lien mortgage, usually the mortgage holder, usually a homeowners association is like if you're depending on how many liens you've got on your house, it's down the pike, but they can foreclose even if they're the last lien on there and then say, okay, whoever buys it subject to the mortgage, and they can go and take your house. But I will tell you this, did you know that Texas has a redemption period?
Texas has a redemption period for what?
How long, if they foreclose on your house, can you come back? What period of time do you have that you can come back and rebuy it back. Like with taxes, you have a redemption period in Texas. It's 2 years.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, what is the redemption period in Texas? Is it 3 months, 6 months?
Close, 180 days.
Yeah.
If the homeowners association forecloses and they're the only foreclosure, you have 180 days to go basically pay the lien and get your title back.
Yeah. See, I think that's incredible. Texas is so good
Mhm.
for homeowners' rights. But if an HOA assesses fines, even incorrectly, it may be better to pay them first and then contest the matter to avoid
Oh my
any
gosh,
late
yes.
fees. I know.
Why would you want to fight
Late fees.
Why would you risk the title to the most precious thing you have?
Right.
You know, the most precious right you have, in my opinion, other than your First Amendment. Well, the first 10 amendments. What are your favorite, just out of curiosity, out of all the 10 amendments, not commandments, amendments, the Bill of Rights, what do you think is the most important one? If there is one, if you could choose it. Because you have the right to vote, the right to...
Right. That's a hard question. I like the
states'
right.
rights.
I like the right to bear arms, the right, I like
So you're a Second Amendment girl.
I like the Second Amendment. But I like all the amendments.
As a criminal defense attorney, I love the Fifth Amendment. But I have to go with the right.
I do too. I love that.
Right for freedom of religion. That's what our whole country was founded on. I mean,
I do. I agree.
Risk persecution, because look back in the old days. I go back to Paul and Saul. Saul was killing everybody because of their religious, persuasion, so to speak.
Mhm.
And you're not going to get killed over that. Well, I hope you don't these days anyway.
At least not in America.
Yeah, I would say, but right now though, my right to free speech is like one of my tops. They kind of change up a bit.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have 9 top things that you should do. 9 things that you should know about homeowner associations. Number 1, learn the HOA rules before you buy a house.
Absolutely.
You may be able to find them online. Before you buy the house, do this. It's very, very important. Make sure any online information is current. If you cannot find this information online, ask your real estate agent to acquire the document so you can see. Pay particular attention to rules regarding fines and whether the HOA can foreclose on your property for non-payment of an HOA dues or fines, because a lot of people don't pay them because they're mad that they don't think they owe them.
Right.
They're like, why should I pay this assessment for?
They're not doing anything for me
when I had nothing to do with the flood or with the y'all wanting to put up a monument in front that I didn't even like. I had nothing to do with. So that's very, very important that you look at whether or not they can foreclose on non-payment and what the rules are on that. Learn about the process for changing or adding rules. And that's actually, if there's not a process in it that overrules it in the actual deed restrictions, go to Texas Property Code, Section 202. It's very, very specific, and it's very clear what is required, whether it's electronic votes or whatever, how rules can be changed, and whether or not HOA meetings are held at the time you'll be able to attend if you wish to do so. If the rules are too restrictive, consider buying elsewhere, because this is governing and affecting your ability to use and enjoy your land.
Just like your husband and what he dealt with over in
is it Great Estates? Oh, Grand Lakes.
Grand Lakes.
Is it Grand Lakes?
I think it's Grand Lakes.
Oh, I can't.
I think that's what it is.
Jim's going to kill me because I can't remember.
But
Great Grand Lakes.
If you're not sure, it's probably not right.
Let me see. We'll ask.
But it messed him up. I mean, it really interfered with his ability to use and enjoy his property.
He left. He uprooted his home in an established community right next to where, or very close to where his hospital was, where he worked at, and he had to leave.
Yeah, this is not uncommon.
So glad he did, because I just love our mode. Okay, next is you want to make sure the home you want to buy is not already out of compliance from the HOA rules. They can actually expire, terminate, or be waived because if the homeowners association isn't enforcing one of the rules. For an example, if several people have trailer parks on their home and it says no trailer parks, and you think, oh, this is great, I'll get rid of them. Homeowners association rules. If they've waived that for a certain period of time, then trailer parks stay. I don't care what the rules say. So be aware and look around before you buy your property. All right.
I see.
Buying an existing problem can be a headache. So find out what the rules are and whether you would have to make changes to the home to comply. And it can go for anything, not just trailer parks, but that comes up quite a bit.
Really?
Trailer parks
even
can be
after
a big deal because people will move a trailer park in onto a property because they see another one's there.
Mhm.
And the reality is the other one may have just been temporary while they were building a home, and that was allowed in the
Right,
restrictions.
right.
And this person wants to move, half the family in to move in their double wide in on a piece of property they bought that, was smaller than the rest, or whatever the case may be. This is the case that I read. And they couldn't do it. They were very upset when they were not allowed to move their double wide on. And what happened was they moved the double wide onto a different property that said didn't have restrictions. It was contiguous. They bought that one too.
Mhm.
And they lost on that one too, even though the
Right.
restrictions had expired. I can't remember what the details were on it, but it was what they ended up happening though was because the homeowners association sued them to take it off. There's a statute that says that for each day that you're not in compliance, and this is statutory, and only if it's the homeowners association, there's a $200 fine per day for each
Ooh.
day you're not in compliance
Ooh.
per deed restriction violation.
Oh,
And this one put them under. They had to, I think, declare bankruptcy and move and the whole bit. And this was their residence. This overrides your homestead rules. So after they had moved the trailer off the one property that had the restriction, which was on like a little 2.2 acre property, and they moved it on the 0.7 acre property that was contiguous, thinking that they were fine. And they did it immediately. They did it right when the HOA told them to do it. They still got fined. And their fine was like $25,000. The property probably wasn't even worth that.
oh my God.
So the homeowners association actually ended up with their property because they thought that they could put a trailer on the property and were trying to comply with it. And when they didn't, and it went to court, they lost. They had their fines were so high that they couldn't even stay there anymore. They lost everything. So be real careful about those deed restrictions.
Good night.
And that's not going to go just with the trailer park. It goes with, not the trailer park. This was not a trailer park community. That was the problem. Assess environmental practices. If environmentally friendly living is important to you, be aware that some HOAs may dictate that you use, like I was saying, fertilizers, pesticides, sprinkler systems, and whatever else it takes to keep your lawn perfect. So they may
right.
regulate what you use.
Mhm.
They may not allow exriscaping, I don't know what this word is in this thing I'm reading, an environmentally friendly form of landscaping, and may limit the size of your gardens, ban compost piles, and many of them do, and prevent you from installing solar panels. So make sure you check the fine print. A lot of people like the solar panels, and it may not be like, particularly in River Oaks, you're not going to be put solar panels into your mansion. You want to move into a little place on the outskirts.
Mhm.
All right. The next thing is consider your temperament. And this would go for you, my beloved husband, because it says, are you the type of person who hates being told what to do? And this is only a homeowners association, so he doesn't know because he has a really good temperament. He's so sweet. If so, living in a community with an HOA may be very frustrating experience for you. And I will say that with our personal homeowners association, we love them. So this is not
That's
the case.
great.
With
You're
them.
very fortunate.
They are working together. We are all kind of the same mind when we bought. We all loved our homes and we all keep them up and that kind of thing. But really, really good. But this goes, if you were in like the place that he was living before, you can't keep your garage door open on Saturdays because it's hot.
Unbelievable.
That's insanity. One of the major benefits of ownership is the ability to customize and alter your property to suit your needs. But your HOA rules may really interfere with this. And we're talking about flip-flops. So be careful when you buy a house that you think you're going to flip and become Joanna Gaines.
Right.
You may not be able to do it. So this is really, really important.
All right. Well, listen, Toni, we are almost out of time. I just want to tell our listeners, and I'm sure you want to join in with me. We're here for you. We are licensed to Texas attorneys. And if you have any questions, reach out to us at questions@legalconnectionshow.com. You can listen to us every Tuesday from 12 to 1 on 104.5 or 106.1 IR Lone Star, or you can listen to us, download our podcast on Google Play or iTunes the Wednesday following our show. So every Wednesday after 8 a.m., we'll be here next week discussing legal topics and here reaching out to you. So reach out to us, 281-529-5862. Have a great week. And
serve God by serving others.
that's right. Y'all have a great week.